we're going to continue our part 2 of this, our rapid speedrun, 10 minutes per player. And we're going to, and the point of that really is and I'm gonna finish my old speedrun. I'm 2300, but obviously here we have the luxury to really spend a lot of time digging in, and we also have the opportunity to review a lot of the concepts that we kind of set about in our main speedrun. Everybody ready? Notebook is out. So 1300, we are playing. No chance ever, thank you for the tier 1. Okay, so we're going to play the Sicilian. Let's play the Accelerated Dragon. Let's play the Accelerated Dragon, which I highly recommend for players in sort of the 1300 rating range. Okay, so Bishop c4. Now, we faced this move a great deal of times. It's like the Italian against the Sicilian, but that doesn't work that way. And what is the reason why this is not as good as the Italian? Yeah, the move is e6, blunting the bishop, right? Blunting the bishop and potentially preparing d5. Now, oh, Eva X Toffee with 5,000 bits. Holy shit, oh my goodness. Wow, amazing, amazing. Okay, we're going to develop our night. Thank you, Eva X Toffee. Big time bomb. Holy smokes. Okay, so we didn't play d5 because that would blunt. Okay, e5. Now, this is going to blow your guys' minds. Black to play. There is a very cool move, and this move actually becomes possible when there's a bishop on c4. Like, very specifically, you need to associate bishop on c4 with the possibility of playing d5. After the game, I will show the opening where this happens most frequently, but there's actually many different openings where this idea manifests itself. So we're occupying the center. Now, if he takes my knight, then we're going to take his bishop, and a very interesting pawn structure arises. There's a lot to unpack there, because for you guys, you might be looking at this, okay, great, he takes. So, you know, this will not remain behind the scenes. Now, you guys might be looking at this and saying, wait a minute, doubled pawns, ruined kingside pawn structure, like, what's good about this? Well, if you look a little bit deeper, you guys know that I always like to de-emphasize pawn structure, or rather put it in proper context. Now, what I want you to understand here, first of all, it's hard for white to develop his bishop. If white plays d3, then we take on d3. White is forced to capture back, and then the pawn on d3 is a sitting duck. Second of all, we have the two bishops, which in an open position is really good. One of these bishops is already like pre-developed onto a really good square. And our pawns, you could look at them and say they're weak, but I look at them and I say, well, they're actually very strong. As I said, they are stopping white from really controlling any share of the center. Okay, so c5 is being attacked. How do we defend this pawn while also preparing to develop this bishop? Beautiful. Nice job, guys. b6, killing two birds with one stone. We want to fianchetto the other bishop, and at the same time, we're protecting our pawn. Queen to d5 also would have been possible, by the way. Just bro, whoa, 584 coming over from Grandmaster's Hands in Hamilton. Welcome, guys. You come at a great time because we're doing our 10-minute speed run, trying to pack this with instructional content. And this is just what we needed somehow. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. Amon, Eric, not sure who was streaming. Really appreciate it. Welcome, Chess Bros. Hope you guys stick around. All right. So, we're right in the middle of our first speedrun game. Let's jump right in. Really appreciate it. Okay. So, as I mentioned many times, it's important to be flexible in chess, right? So, you have to be able to change your strategy at a moment's notice. But the funny thing is, the move I initially intended was bishop to a6 to attack the pawn. Does anybody see what's wrong with the move bishop a6? Thank you, Magno. And we're actually going to end up playing bishop b7 here. But what is wrong with bishop a6, which looks very natural? It's queen a4. Queen a4 kind of forks these two undefended pieces. And the way you need to see this is, okay, the knight is undefended. You guys know that you have to be obsessed with undefended pieces. And when you put another piece on an undefended square, that needs to set the alarm bells ringing. So instead, let's just play bishop b7 as originally intended. Then we're going to castle, and we can potentially play knight b4 and target this weak pawn. Okay? So everything should be pretty clear so far. Take a couple of bites of curry. Okay, what should we do now? What should we do now? So what is being threatened, first of all? What is being threatened is knight d6. But we don't actually specifically need to defend against knight d6. By castling, we take the sting out of it. I like that expression, taking the sting out of it. We don't literally stop him from going knight d6, but it's no longer a fork. It's no longer a fork. We can reposition our bishop to a6. And in the event of... Okay, so knight g5. And this move looks scary. It looks very intimidating. Looks like he's attacking us. The reality is, if we look very carefully at what it is exactly that he's threatening, we find that his position has no leg to stand on. First of all, we could go h6. But what I want to make very clear is we don't need to do that. We can go directly for the counterattack. Now, bishop takes b2 would be bad, and I'll talk about this after the game. Basically, the reason is he has queen h5. So we need to keep the bishop for defensive purposes, but that is enough. So if we wanted to counterattack, what should we do? Well, we have to figure out what is weak. The d3 pawn is white's biggest weakness, right? I think you guys would all agree with that. So let's actually target that pawn. If he goes queen h5, which I think is quite likely, what you guys will see is that his position falls apart really, really quickly. I take on d3 with check, then I easily disarm his attack, and then I win a piece. Now, knight d4 doesn't actually accomplish all that much. It doesn't threaten anything. I like knight b4 more. It's more purposeful, if that makes sense. White is already in trouble because... Okay, so he castles, which is correct. Now, what should we take on d3 with? The knight or the queen? And both moves are probably okay. But let's actually annoy... let's annoy the crap out of him. First, I'm going to go h6. I'm going to say, get out of here. Then I'm going to take with the queen. Actually, it depends what he does, right? If he moves his knight to f3, then knight takes d3 actually attacks two pieces at once. It attacks the knight, which has now lost its defender, and it attacks the bishop. So I don't think he can save both pieces. But this is annoying because we're basically showing him who's boss. My guess is he's going to play this move if I have the right read on his style. That doesn't actually work, though. And we need to remember something I talked about when I went over the Greek gift sacrifice to find the refutation. So when he goes... wait, let's wait for what he does because I don't want to ramble on and on if he doesn't go queen h5. But my guess is he would. Oh, he goes back. Okay, knight takes d3, right? So does this move make sense to everybody? We are attacking the bishop. And then the knight on e4 was previously protected by the pawn. So now it has lost its defender. So there's a couple of ways that he can temporarily save his piece. One of them is knight d6, counterattacking my bishop. That doesn't actually work, and we'll talk about it if he plays it. Let me write this down in case he doesn't. If he plays bishop to d6, then we still take the knight. We're going to have two pieces for a rook and an extra pawn, and we're going to have complete piece domination. So we're going to be winning, although we're not going to be up a piece. Easy. No, the first speedrun is still ongoing. I'm 2300, but in parallel, we're basically starting a 10-minute speedrun as well. Or slow run, as some purists, speedrun purists, want to call it. I'm fine with it. So everything I'm doing should make perfect sense to you guys. And white is completely lost. He's simply, as I said, he has no leg to stand on. So the key thing that you guys should be mulling over... Okay, so he literally gives us a menu. Black caviar or Five Guys or In and Out. Five Guys in and out, Five Guys in and out, Five Guys. Five Guys. Five Guys because the rook on b1 is hanging. It literally doesn't matter. We can take either piece. In and Out is my California jam, though. The reason I take with a bishop, actually... Okay, so now we got to be a little bit careful, right? I know a lot of you are like, wait a second, we can take the bishop. No. Slow down, because he's attacking our bishop. Do we want to give up this beautiful piece? No. We want to defend this bishop. But we don't just want to defend it with any old move. We want to defend it in a way that also coordinates the maximum amount of pieces. Now, this is the habit that I want you guys to get into, right? Bishop g6 is fine. f5 is very good. f5 defends the bishop with a pawn. But even better is the move queen to d5, right? Magic Toaster, very good. Because this creates a battery against his knight. We are now kind of threatening to ruin his pawn structure or force a queen trade with the move bishop takes f3. We're connecting the rooks. And just generally, we're solidifying our advantage, if that makes sense. f5 is also good. And many roads lead to Rome in such a position, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm choosing the only winning move or anything like that. This is just one way of approaching the position. Black to play and win the game. This, as some people said, this seems to allow a pin, but there's one very important tactical detail. This is not a pin against the king. The knight literally is not paralyzed, and knight takes f4 is a very simple move, counter-attacking his queen. If he takes our queen, then we take his with check. Even if it wasn't check, it would still be good. 5 guys in and out. This time we're going to give some homage to in and out. His position has completely collapsed. He is down 480 million pieces, and the game is, oh my goodness. We are just... Vacuum cleaner is on. Vacuum cleaner is on. Okay, so let's walk over the game. So bishop c4 is not amazing, but it's not terrible either. So knight f6, e5, d5. So the opening where this happens most famously is in the Scotch Gambit. And the Scotch, or the Scotch Italian, that's like a mixture of the Scotch and the Italian. And after knight f6, e5, the move d5 is the main theoretical continuation. Ratings get refunded. Does that make sense? So this leads to a very theoretical line, but basically that's the same exact concept. Okay. So instead of d5, we can also go after the pawn. Yeah, so this is okay. We can actually try to win this pawn with this move queen c7, but I wanted to illustrate the move d5. So e takes f6. Now, he should have probably taken en passant. But then he's basically moved his e-pawn 3 times, only to trade it for a d-pawn that's only moved once. We have better control of the center than he does. And this bishop we're going to fianchetto. So this is a great position for black. If that makes sense. I still think you should have done that, because this position is already quite bad for white. To recap some of the reasons that white is worse here. First of all, look at these pawns. They're doubled, but doubled pawns can actually operate in tandem, kind of like partners, in stopping white from controlling the center. It's not easy for white to actually attack either of these pawns. If he goes queen to e2 and he says, all right, I'm going to win this pawn. Well, no, you're not, because black can counterattack this pawn and force the queen back to d1. His position is just too passive to allow him a sustained attack on these pawns. So knight e4, b6, no problem. Defending, preparing to fianchetto. Bishop a6 we didn't play because queen a4 would basically attack these 2 pieces and force the bishop back. Well, b3 is not possible because that blunders the rook. So he can play against rook b1, but like nobody wants to make a move like that. Maybe he should have. So bishop b7, bishop f4 castles. Knight d6 is no longer scary. Now we can reposition the bishop. And you guys might be like, wait a second, isn't there queen a4? Here we have to use the method of comparison. If we compare this position to this position, there's one key difference. Black is already castled. What does that mean? That means the knight can move. The knight is no longer pinned, which in turn means that you can play knight to b4, killing everything in one fell swoop, defending the bishop, and preparing to capture t3. So method of comparison, very, very important. It allows you to perceive small differences in positions that may look the same. So he goes knight fg5, we go knight b4, ignore. Now, first of all, this is pawn grabbing, right? You want to be careful about grabbing a pawn like this. And the problem with this move is the king loses its defender. And queen h5 becomes devastating. Again, you have to use the method of comparison. Queen h5 here. Black has a key defensive move that he would not have with the bishop not being on g7. Actually, there's 2 possibilities. One is h6. Does anybody see the other defensive option? Even more accurate than h6. What else can black do? Well, not knight f4, because that blunders the mate, right? But before knight takes f4, you can do what distracting move? No, f6 doesn't defend against checkmate. Bishop takes c4. Good job, guys. Defending the pawn. Knight takes c4, and only now knight takes f4 happens. We're a piece up. Do you guys want me to blow your mind? Not only are we a piece up, in this position, black to play has forced checkmate. Beautiful idea. And it doesn't usually happen with a king being on f1. It's a frickin', what is it? Greco is right, and it's a smothered mate. Check. Now we can take the knight and be 2 pieces up, but instead we give smothered mate. Check, check. This is the classic, and knight e2 smothered mate on g1, which is rare. Normally smothered mate happens in the corner. But here, it just so happens that the rooks are positioned in this way. And this has been around for like 500 years, this concept. Sexy indeed. So not necessary, but very sexy. And that is how you win the game. So knight b4, queen h5 is not dangerous. He castles. We play h6. First First, we get rid of the knight. Now here, queen takes d3 would also be very good. This would also be very good. It would force a queen trade, and we have amazing pieces, and we're up a pawn. But knight takes d3 just wins the game. Once again, we have two pieces hanging. White cannot save both of them. He decides to give up the knight, and the rest is very easy. Bishop d6 would be the lesser evil. At least he can get an exchange for the pieces. But look at how amazing our pieces are. Once we bring the rook in, everything is literally going to be in the game. e4. Okay, so he plays the Caro-Kann. Now, against the Caro-Kann, there's many possible weapons. We play d4. One opening, or one variation of the Caro for white that I've recommended to Charlie, very easy to learn and very good at helping you build positional understanding, is actually the exchange. Now here, the follow-up move to this is just as important as taking. Now, where does the bishop want to go? Like this bishop on c8. What would be its most active development square? Of course, f5. Exactly. F5 is right. D-Chen, by the way, if I go through concepts too fast, please ask me and I will happily repeat them. Well, g4 is hanging, right? You can't go to g4. I'm literally saying in this position, and so bishop d3 is the move. If we make any other move, then the bishop comes out to f5. If we play knight f3, then the bishop comes out to g4. Yeah, literally, D-Chen, that is the point. Do not feel bad about that. Okay. And I will answer questions after the game. Like questions about why I didn't play XYZ, I will answer after the game. So here, a lot of people want to go knight f3. I know. The problem with knight f3, what does the move knight f3 allow? In the same spirit as bishop d3, we want to be very careful about how we defend the pawn. It allows the move bishop g4. But let's not forget that this pawn is hanging. Now, I've already made this point many times. When you want to defend a pawn, the most solid way of defending a pawn is generally to build a pawn chain. Because when you defend a pawn with another pawn, that's just like very, very solid. It's hard to get rid of a pawn. Pawns are like very stable in their position, and so we play c3. Now, we want to get the knight out. But wait a second. As we discussed, getting the knight out allows bishop g4. How do we prevent bishop g4 in preparation for getting the knight out? Bingo, h3. h3 is correct. Then we play knight f3, and this bishop is going to have a very hard time finding a good spot. You can fianchetto it, but then it's kind of biting on granite. I already encountered this problem with black. There is a way around this problem, which I will talk about after the game. Those of you who watched my speedrun, you might remember how I solved this problem. There's a very interesting way of developing this bishop on c8, but it's not intuitive. It actually looks bad. That is actually to develop it to f5, which looks very bad. Okay, so e6 is kind of a... It's not a mistake, but now this bishop ends up in a lot of trouble. I'm just going to castle. Now, in terms of developing this bishop, very important. Bishop g5 may look like the most active move, but bishop g5 is actually not very good. And the reason bishop g5 is not very good is because this pin isn't really dangerous. Black can just move his queen away, and then the bishop is just staring into open space. Instead, we should develop the bishop more purposefully to f4. And the bottom line reason is that this e5 square, does everybody see that square? That clamping down on that square is going to make it very hard for black to untangle his pieces. Black is just going to be very cramped. Now we're going to develop his knight. The way to uncramp oneself if you are black is potentially to get the e5 breakthrough, which is exactly what a d2 is trying to do. But guess what? That's why we developed our bishop to f4. Now we need to pile up on this square with everything that we have. It's like the intruders are trying to break down the door, and we're freaking shoving everything there. We're shoving a door, a picture frame. They're not going to break the door down. So we're going to go rook to e1, right? And queen e2 would be counterproductive. We don't need to play queen e2. We have this defended enough. But here's the cool thing we can do. On the one hand, we can get pieces to control e5. But there is another way to make e5 more difficult. And that is to remove black's pieces which are controlling e5. Now, which pieces are controlling e5? The first is the bishop, hard to remove. The second is the knight. How can we remove this knight from c6? Not bishop e5, guys. The problem with bishop b5 is that even if you take the knight, it'll just be replaced by the other one. And hey, this bishop on d3 is perfectly good piece. b4, b5. Use pawns. Okay. So a4. Let's go b4, a4. Does the logic make sense here? Okay, now the logic should make perfect sense. The logic should make perfect sense. We're trying to remove the knight from c6. Our entire game plan here is to permanently prevent him from liberating his position. We're going to just like squeeze him to death. Now b5 doesn't work because if a takes b5, this is defended twice and attacked only once. Okay, Mr. Llama. Now here's the thing. Before playing b5, there is a preliminary move that we can make to improve our position in a substantive way. Now let's survey his position. Let's make an inventory of his weaknesses. When I say weakness, what should you be thinking about? You should be thinking about pawns, which we are making contact with, and which are not defended by any other pawns. Which pawn fits the bill if you are white? Which of black's pawns fits the bill of a weak pawn? Bingo. So in addition to running him out of the gym here, we should be thinking about ways in which we can pile up on the e6 pawn. Does anybody see any maneuvers which can allow one of our minor pieces, because minor pieces need to lead the attack, otherwise we'll never make any progress. Which maneuver will allow us to attack the e6? Bingo. Knight b3, knight c5. Right? That is an idea that we can implement as well in parallel. Okay, so he attacks the bishop. Let's move it back. Let's tuck it away on h2. Maybe bishop g3 was better, but it doesn't really matter. This actually is a very weakening move. Okay, so this is actually a very instructive mistake. The problem with this strategy for black is that he just doesn't have... This is going to backfire. He doesn't have the horsepower to make this happen, and we actually don't need to do anything about it. We can just continue along our strategy, which means what move? Actually, sacking is interesting, but... Ooh, actually sacking is very interesting. Wait a minute. Ooh. Oh, that's sexy. No, that's actually the best move. Oh, man, that's beautiful, because look at the queen. Good stuff. What you guys should see is that the queen is x-raying h5. Now, normally I don't like to do this kind of speculative stuff on the speedrun, but this is an exception. We're going to play this Daniel style. Knight takes g5. Now, after the game, I will explain in great detail why this is good, how I know this is good, but you guys should already kind of sense that black's king is going to get caught in a massive storm. Now, there's a couple of things to notice. The first is, like, most of black's pieces are not very well developed, so black is not going to have the defensive firepower to defend against the attack. The second thing is, we're basically going to have, at the very least... Okay, so he doesn't take the knight. He doesn't take the knight. He does go e5, which is admirable, but it's just a day late and $1 short. So, we're going to play queen takes h5. Let's involve the queen. We're still offering up the knight. That hasn't changed. Now we're bringing the queen into the attack. The second thing to remember is that we have at the very least 2 pawns for the piece. Okay, so he goes e4. A lot going on here. Now, when we're attacking, our priority needs to be on hunting down basically diagonals and avenues toward our opponent's king. That's the best way, I think, to explain it. And we need to do the wish list thing again. Remember, I was talking about the wish list last time? The wish list is basically like, what do we really want to achieve? Now, what I'm looking at here is this king on g8. And the first thing I'm checking for is immediate checks. Okay, maybe queen h7. Nah, king f8. If you go queen f7, he goes king h8. I don't see exactly how to continue the attack. But we're going to play knight d takes e4. And if d takes e4, we can certainly take on e4 and involve another piece, but we have a much better move. You have to look at the whole board. If d takes e4, what do? What new avenues have opened up for our pieces? Bingo. Bishop c4 check. King has to get to f8, and then we checkmate the king in one of several ways. And if he goes knight to d5 and covers it up, look at the queen very, very carefully. The queen is defending the rook. But it's also going to be defending the knight, which means it's overloaded. We can take the knight, and then we can take the rook. I'll show that after the game. But I'm just sort of explaining the logic here. If he takes my other knight, we're just going to take, and we're going to have an overwhelming amount of pieces of the attack. Okay. Now, we literally just need to tear black's position apart. We need, and this is something that I actually struggle to explain. This is tactics. Knight takes f6. There isn't always verbal logic that explains a move like knight takes. It just works. I guess the verbal logic is that after bishop takes f6, the bishop is unprotected, which means that the move queen f7 check is going to pick the bishop off with checkmate to follow. So we take the bishop. And then so we go back to f7, and now we have checkmate in 2 moves. Now this looks like it's checkmate, but whoa, there's a bishop on f5, so what do? Very simple. There's a bishop on f5. It's preventing us from giving checkmate. We take the damn bishop, and then we can pre-move queen h7. He literally has no way to stop it. Nothing extraordinary, right? Remove the defender. Bingo. Checkmate. Okay. Thank you, Demon. Appreciate it. Thank you for all of your support as well. So, let's walk through the game. So, bishop to d3, first of all, okay? The idea to stop the bishop from developing to f5. Stop the bishop from developing to f5. Knight c6, c3. Once again, knight f3 allows bishop g4, which is a very nice parking spot for the bishop. Pinning the knight and attacking d4. So we go c3. g6, fianchettoing the bishop. Now, I mentioned during the game black's best setup. So if I were black here, what would I do? Let me flip the board for a second. So if I were playing black, first of all, I would develop my knight and castle. Okay? Well, let's say that white develops the bishop to f4. The move that I actually advocate for here is bishop to f5. I played this myself in the main 5-minute speedrun a little bit earlier. And you guys might be looking at this and sort of scratching your imaginary beard and saying, wait a second, what is this? Like, you're weakening the king side like this, you're doubling your pawns, what are you doing? But I've explained the logic behind this, I think, a couple days ago. Because much like in the first speedrun game we played today, there's a couple of extenuating circumstances here. The first thing is, look at these 2 pawns. They are clamping down on the e4 square, setting up a very nice little outpost for that knight. Now, once you put that knight on the outpost, it's going to cover up any attempts that white may have at getting to the f5 pawn. You also have the move e6, which builds up a little bit of a pawn chain and defends the weak pawn on f5. The third thing, and this is something that I really want people to pay attention to, the so-called weakness on the king side can actually be used in black's favor. Because the g-file is what's called semi-open. There's pawns of only one color on the g-file. And because it's a white pawn, black can use the g-file to his favor. The plan is to go king h8, rook g8, and to basically deliver checkmate down the g-file, right? And these attacks that happen down the g-file can come really, really fast because black's pieces are essentially super active. Black's pieces are like tremendously active here, and so they compensate for these visual defects in black's position. Does that make sense to everybody? As we're moving on, I'll run a little chess space search and see if I can show you guys an example of a real game where black conducted a successful attack in a similar position. If you just give me a second here. 1994 Women's Olympiad. So watch what happens. So we literally have the same line. I mean, literally the exact line we're talking about. Here's knight e4. Here comes the queen to the g-file. And here comes the rook to the g-file. So literally these ideas, right? Get out of here. And now Sabirova doubles her rooks, builds up Alekhine's gun. f4. Look at the pressure on the g3 pawn. And now what I love about this game, repeating moves, and now finding in this position a really, really strong idea. So this is like a damn girl idea. Look at this pawn on g3 very carefully. We need to break through that pawn. The problem is that pawn is defended like 1,000,000 times. What resource do we need to involve to just break that pawn down? Boom, boom. Look at this. Look at the pressure on the pawn. There's 4 pieces on it, and white finally cracks. 5 pieces on it. Every single one of black's pieces, and basically even the knight indirectly, is attacking that pawn. And white finally breaks. Knight takes f4 is a blunder. Knight takes f4, and here white resigned. And the reason white resigned is if g takes f4, you get checkmated. What about rook takes f4? What's the idea? This is like a damn girl game. Queen takes rook. Very simple tactic. Get out of g3. And rook takes g2. Black ends up a rook in the endgame. So there's other examples I could find if I searched longer, but hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of context as to how these attacks can get started. Okay, so back to the speedrun. Yep, that was a nice game. So that is the way that the black should play. Now, I'm not going to pretend that white is like worse here. So the move e6 is, I would say, a positional error. The chess-related term that you would use here is passive. The move, well, knight e4, Eldar Emily, what exactly is knight e4 give us? So the way you should think about this is in terms of understanding the center. So the center in chess is very important. When you have pieces in the center, from a mathematical point of view, you literally control more squares. Like the knight on e4 is like the glue guy, right? It's gluing everything together. It's stopping white from easily shifting pieces from one side of the board to the other. For example, if the knight was not on e4, white would be able to go queen to c2 and attack the pawn on f5, kind of sniping at it. Knight e4 stops that. So you shouldn't overthink it. Just like visually speaking, a piece in the center like this, particularly when it's supported by several pawns, is like a bone in your opponent's throat. Does that make sense? A little bit more sense, Emily? Okay, and don't be afraid to say no. It's fine if something doesn't make sense. That's my responsibility, not your fault that you don't get it. It's my responsibility to explain it in a way that you do. Okay, so e6. The way to explain... This is passive, right? Does it make sense that this is passive? It should, because the bishop on c8 now has no prospects. Bishop on c8 is basically confined to a very, fruitless existence. That doesn't mean black is losing here, but it does mean black's position is very cramped. So basically, we are now clamping down on the e5 square with all that we've got, because the only way really to get this bishop active again, to get black's position uncramped, is to prepare e5. And I like that you played f6, but you basically have no chance here, because we've piled up on the e5 square to such a degree that black just doesn't have the resources necessary to get that into the game. Okay. So rook to e8, and now we go b4. Now we involve the queenside pawns. We want to go b5 and chase away the knight. What that does is it makes it even harder for black, even less likely that black is going to go e5. In parallel, we are developing the idea of transferring our knight to c5, and what that does is it targets this very tender pawn on e6, right? The reason it's tender is because the pawn has moved out from f7, where it was defending it. So pawns that are not protected by other pawns, those are the ones that you should be paying attention to, particularly ones in a semi-open file, right? So we go a4. We reinforce the threat of b5, g5 and h5, and this hastens black's defeat. And now the move knight takes g5. So I think by now most people should understand the zen of this sacrifice, but there was one key variation that makes this go even better. So f takes g5, queen takes h5. We're threatening all sorts of things. We also want to bring this knight into the game with knight f3, knight takes g5. But black can try to intercept the bishop with knight f5. What does white do in the event of this? Why does this move not actually work? Because also black wants to bring the queen into the game. But, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment, JB. So not g4. We can just take the knight, actually. We can take the knight. And if e takes f5, then we take the rook, and we win the queen. So how did I know? Well, it's hard for me to fully explain exactly like how I knew that sacrificing is good. That's what intuition is. Sort of by definition, intuition is hard to put into words. It's just a gut feeling that this is going to work. But I explained some of the factors that I think contribute to my subconscious gut feeling. And one of them is I have at least 2 pawns for the piece, which really lowers the stakes. Like even if this fails, right, I'm probably going to have 3 pawns for the piece, which materially speaking is enough compensation. But the other thing is the combination of the fact that I have a lot of pieces in the attack and potentially also the knight. So 1, 2, 3, potentially the rook lift 4, right? This bishop could come in 5. Black's pieces are extremely cramped and they will remain cramped for the foreseeable future. I mean, how is black going to get his pieces out quickly? And so all of these things put together, right? Even without calculating a variation other than knight f5, bishop takes f5, I'm able to kind of tell with a reasonable degree of certainty that white is winning here. It's +7, actually. Asteroid Delta gifting to Matthew. Thank you so much for the gifted sub. No, that's the best move, actually, I think. Knight g5 is the best move according to the computer. Yep, it's the best move. So, we played accurately here. Now, I think what you should have done in this position is basically bitten the bullet. This is not an easy position to play, but I would have gone maybe b6, maybe just develop, honestly, bishop d7. And when you're cramped like this, what you sometimes want to do to annoy your opponent is literally just like nothing, right? You do what you can to develop your pieces. And if white goes knight to b3, how do you prevent the knight from getting to c5 and attacking e6? Like, is there a way to prevent that? Well, e5 doesn't work. That's why we piled up our pieces on the e5 square. Yeah, so we can play b6. Now, if you're playing white, how can you undermine the b6 pawn? Slight change of plans. We wanted to go b5, but that is no longer necessary. Radcliffe, another gifted to Remier. We can go a5. And the fact that black's pawn is on a6 actually hurts you. So dialing the logic back, I would not play a6 here for that specific reason. I would go b6 immediately. Or maybe bishop d7 first, knight b3, and then b6. Because now, if white goes a4 and a5, you don't have to do anything. You can ignore this, which means that you're not going to be able to get the knight to c5, and black's position holds here. It's not easy for white to actually break through black's defenses if black sort of defends this very calmly, if that makes sense. So I think the move a6, as tempting as it is to try to stop b5, it's actually a mistake. This move is actually a mistake, precisely because now it's going to be very hard to stop the knight from coming to c5. Does that make sense? So the move b5 here doesn't work. A takes b5, and rook takes rook. What about b5 after b6? Well, the thing is, if you go... Oh, you mean bishop d7, knight b3, b6? Yeah, b5 is annoying, but you could go either knight a... Yeah, you could go knight a5 here. I get that like this ruins the structure, but hey, you have to accept some deficiencies. Also, this opens up the c file. And black's rook could target this backward pawn on c3. Thank you, Drink the Dead. So, you know, we're not going to delve too deeply into this position. White basically is going to try to break through, maybe h4, h5. Black is worse, but the position certainly remains defensible. And basically, after the sacrifice is done, we just break through, you know. And now knight d takes c4. That's kind of the key move. Both knights are hanging, but neither can be captured. Because if d takes c4, then we play bishop c4 check. If king f8, we can checkmate in a nice way with knight h7. And if knight d5, then the queen is overloaded. It has two jobs: defend the rook, defend the knight. Hey, I can't do both at the same time. Either you take the bishop and you lose control of the rook, disaster, or you don't take the bishop and you get checkmated. So it's all very simple here. You can position kind of plays itself. If you take the other knight, then of course knight takes g5 with all sorts of threats here and just absolutely crushing. There's just no way black can possibly defend. And I hope that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the turning point might have even been e6, right? The turning point might have even been e6, because this really makes black's position hard to play. This is just too passive. And honestly, I think I played a really nice game. I think, you know, we played a really nice game. I think, you know, and I'm not taking it easy on anybody here, so don't feel bad about it. I'm playing my full strength here. So certainly don't feel 98.8%. So I don't feel bad about losing. Don't feel bad about it being a one-sided game. You're doing a great deed by putting yourself out there and allowing me the privilege of playing you and explaining all the moves.